The story of Richard Feynman. Once upon a time, in a busy city called New York, a curious boy named Richard Feynman was born on May 11, 1918. From the moment he could talk, Richard was full of questions. He wanted to know how everything worked. Why does the clock tick? How does the radio play music? He wasn't afraid to take things apart just to figure them out, even if he couldn't always put them back together. His family sometimes laughed at his experiments, but they knew Richard was special. Richard's curiosity came from his father, Melville Feynman. Melville loved to learn and talk about science. He didn't just give Richard answers. He encouraged him to think deeply and explore on his own. They would sit together, looking at birds or books, and Melville would say, "Don't just know what it's called. Understand how it works." These moments with his father inspired Richard to always ask why and how, no matter what he was learning. At school, Richard's love of asking questions didn't stop. He was especially good at math and science, but he wasn't just solving problems in his textbooks. Richard liked asking questions that even his teachers didn't know the answers to. For example, one day, he wondered, "Why is the sky blue?" Most kids would stop there, but not Richard. He worked hard to figure it out and learned that the blue color comes from the way sunlight scatters in the air. Every new answer made him want to ask more questions. As Richard got older, his thirst for knowledge only grew. He went to a famous university called Princeton, where some of the brightest minds in the world studied. Richard was no ordinary student, he was brilliant. But he wasn't all work and no play. He loved playing the drums, cracking jokes, and having fun with his friends. Richard believed learning was exciting, but life was about more than just studying. After finishing his studies, Richard became a professor. But he wasn't like other professors. Instead of giving long, boring lectures, Richard found fun and creative ways to teach. He used silly stories, simple examples, and lots of humor to explain even the most difficult ideas. His students adored him because he made learning physics feel like an adventure. Physics, the science of understanding how things move and work, became Richard's passion. He worked on big questions like, how do atoms behave? And what rules govern the tiniest parts of the universe? These questions led him to a field called quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is all about studying the smallest things in the world, like atoms and particles. Richard developed new ideas and ways to solve problems in this field, making him one of the greatest scientists of his time. During World War II, Richard's life took a serious turn. The United States was in a race to develop a powerful weapon called the atomic bomb, and they needed the smartest scientists to help. Richard joined the team working on this secret project, called the Manhattan Project. It was a tough job, and the work was so secret that he couldn't even tell his family what he was doing. While the project helped end the war, Richard felt conflicted because he knew the bomb caused great destruction. He later spoke about the importance of using science responsibly. After the war, Richard returned to teaching and research. He didn't want science to feel intimidating or only for geniuses. Instead, he wanted everyone to see how fun and exciting it could be. He gave lectures, wrote books, and even appeared on TV to explain physics in simple ways. His most famous lectures were collected into a series called the Feynman Lectures on Physics, which became popular around the world. But Richard wasn't just about science. He loved learning about all sorts of things. He traveled to different countries, met new people, and explored new hobbies. For example, when he visited Brazil, he fell in love with samba music. Determined to learn how to play it, he practiced the drums every day and even joined a local samba band. His curiosity wasn't limited to labs and equations, it extended to everything around him. Richard also had a mischievous side. He loved solving puzzles and finding clever ways to do things. Once, while working on the Manhattan Project, he figured out how to pick locks on safes just for fun. He didn't steal anything, he just wanted to prove he could solve the challenge. Despite being one of the smartest people in the world, Richard was always humble. He didn't see himself as better than anyone else. He believed that anyone, no matter their age or background, could be a scientist if they were curious and asked good questions. He often said, "Science is like solving puzzles, it's about the joy of discovery." In his later years, Richard wrote books about his life and work. One of his most famous books, Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman, is filled with funny stories and lessons about science and life. People loved his playful attitude and his belief that learning should always be fun. Richard Feynman passed away in 1988, but his legacy lives on. His discoveries in physics changed the way we understand the universe, and his books and lectures continue to inspire new generations of curious minds. Richard taught us that asking questions and exploring the world around us can lead to amazing discoveries. So, whenever you're curious about something, whether it's why the sky is blue, how a clock works, or how to play samba drums, remember Richard Feynman's story. It shows that with curiosity, creativity, and a love for learning, you can discover incredible things and make the world a brighter, more interesting place.